Hello everybody, my name is James Alty and welcome to episode 1 in our series of webinars. Today we're going to look at audience building with Apteco, and in particular we're looking at the new Orbit Audiences tool. I'm going to be your host for the next half an hour. Our session today is led by Apteco, and I thought I would give you a little bit of insight who we are. We're an independent software vendor founded in 1987 in the UK, and we produce the Apteco Marketing Suite. That suite is made of 3 component parts. Apteco FastStats, the product we're probably best known for. It's an analytics and modeling environment for data analysts working with big data to understand customer bases and marketplaces. And that connects to Apteco PeopleStage, which is our campaign automation platform. That allows you to take action with the insight that you create in FastStats. And that action is typically multi-channel, multi-wave campaigning across 10 genres of channel, from apps and push notifications and digital marketing through to traditional direct marketing mechanisms, calls and text messages, emails, for example. And then finally, in the suite, we have Apteco Orbit, and that's the tool we're going to be looking at today. Apteco Orbit is the web platform that presents the results from the insight and the results from the campaigning in a browser-based environment where we can share those insights and result reports from our campaigning with our colleagues. And we're going to look at a new capability in Apteco Orbit that allows marketers to create their own target audiences. So allowing marketers with their knowledge of their customer base and the marketing activity to create the target groups themselves, rather than having to wait or collaborate with a colleague to do it. Apteco has hundreds of enterprise customers worldwide with thousands of users operating the software. And to support that customer base, we have businesses in Warwick, where we develop the software in the UK, and in Frankfurt, Germany, Sydney, Australia, and Rotterdam in the Netherlands. And each of our offices supports a partner network of specialist partner businesses who will work with our customers on the management and cleansing and hosting of data, the marketing strategy, and the fulfillment of their analytics and campaign automation requirements. And we work in all sectors across vertical markets, but also in types of the marketing. So we work with B2C, business to consumer, business to business, and not-for-profit marketing, third sector marketing. Just a quick introduction to me. I'm the founder and MD of Apteco. I've been working in this sector for over 30 years. I specialize in marketing analytics and automation work, and I was lucky enough to be elected to the Data IQ Top 100 last year and again this year. And I enjoy working with the industry and with my colleagues to develop how marketers and analysts can work together to get insight from big data and to use that to achieve better communication with their customers and the marketplace. So we're presenting a series of webinars helping marketers understand how they can solve the challenges that they face. This is episode 1, and we're going to be looking at how to create a target audience, building the rules and checking the results of building a target audience with Apteco, and particularly with the Orbit Audiences tool, showing how easy that is for anyone to access through a web browser using a desktop device or a tablet. In episode 2, we'll look at how an analyst can share the stories in that data, building understanding from the customer base and marketplace data loaded into their Apteco system, and then sharing that story with the colleagues and stakeholders in their business, allowing them to communicate the subsets and the insight that they can create from those subsets identified in the data. And then episode 3, we're going to look at our campaigning and campaign reporting, particularly the mechanisms that allow us to look at campaign results, how we can report on the lift that has been achieved through that campaigning, and how use of control groups will allow us to detect the effect of your marketing. And again, we'll be looking at how Orbit can be used to share that insight across teams. So this is episode 1. We're looking at audience building. As you can see from the screenshot, the software can operate on desktops or tablets or phones. Frankly, we haven't really designed the audience tool for use on the phone. You could do it, but you'd probably end up doing quite a lot of scrolling around with your fingers, and it's more practical on tablets and desktops. For today, for the webinar, for screen sharing, I'm going to be using a desktop device, but I could equally well have this experience using a tablet type device, and I might share an audience with a senior colleague who's traveling and who just wants to check and approve the audience, and they might sensibly do that on their phone. So the browser software gives us that flexibility. Now, in the webinar, I'm going to play the role of a marketer who wants to create their own audience. They want to bring their own knowledge and expertise to creating the target group for some tactical marketing activity. They don't want to have to wait for the IT team to get round to pulling an extract from the CRM or the data warehouse system, and so they want to get on with that now and not end up having to wait. So we'll see how we can create audiences. We can check the results of the audience that we have prepared. We'll see nice breakdowns and visualizations of that audience in order that we can be sure that we have made the correct selection. Doing so in a safe environment. We can't damage the audience, we can't damage the database, we can't overload it. It's all a nice safe environment, accessible from wherever I am working. And that will allow me to speed up my campaign planning and preparation work, allowing the marketing team to self-service, not put extra load on the IT team who are busy running the operational services within the business. Marketing will be able to self-serve using this tool and to work with confidence, just knowing that we're doing the right thing, checking and cross-checking our data at each stage. So in this case, I'm going to play the role of a marketer at a fictitious travel business called Teal Green Holidays. It's not real, but I'll show you in a moment. It does have a website, and it's the brand that we use for training around the Apteco marketing suite. And in this case, we're going to be creating a campaign for a cricket tour. England have just won the Cricket World Cup, and we're doing some tactical marketing on the back of that, offering cricket fans the chance to visit cricket playing nations overseas. And we need to get on, in this case, with finding our target audience. Let's see how we might go about that. So I'll just swap over to my web browser, and I'll start with our fictitious brand. This is Teal Green Holidays. You can see tealgreenholidays.co.uk. Looks like it sells some beautiful high-value holidays, in different types, whether you want nature or adventure or beach holidays. They're all available from Teal Green, except it's for fictitious. It's just for demonstration purposes. But one of my colleagues at this fictitious company has sent me an email. Let's have a look and see what they said. It is an audience request, and it's a typical sort of request that might arrive in a marketing team. Hi team, England are World Cup winners. We're promoting tours of the cricket playing nations. We're going to visit the test sites, but to help with that, we need some data, and the data we need are these target groups. So let's just highlight the central requirement. We have some different target groups. We've got some obligations of use and volumes that our colleague Sam, the marketing manager, has specified. Well, I'm going to copy that from my email because I'm going to use it in a minute as a checklist to remind me of the audience that I am creating. And I'm going to create that audience in the Orbit tool. So this is a web-based tool. I'm running it in the Chrome browser, but it'll operate in any modern browser. And in this case, I'm operating it from my Teal Green Holidays site, but it's a private area and I need to be able to log in. Unfortunately, I know my password, and when I log in, I can see three panels. These three panels actually mirror the three episodes that we're going to use for the webinar series. The collections on the left-hand side are stories of sharing insight, collections of insight prepared by my analytical colleagues who've shared those storyboards with their colleagues or management team, for example, to share insight about the database. We'll look at that in another webinar episode. The central panel is about our campaigning activity. We can see Teal Green Holidays as a business has 94 campaigns running currently. We can see some of the details of those campaigns, and indeed the work we do today will lead to a campaign for the cricket tour that we're proposing. But we're going to look at the third panel on the right hand side here, the audiences, and this is where we will start with the simple creation of a new target audience. So for today's purpose, I'm just going to create a new audience, and we get a nice clear screen. We can see at the top the navigation devices for the whole product. We can see it's me that's logged in, and we have a name that's been created automatically for me for this audience. But actually, I'm going to give it a bit of a nicer name. I'm going to say that it is our cricket tour audience. And as soon as I stop typing, don't even need to leave the field, you can see that my work has been saved. There is no save button because every time I make a change, it's saved for me automatically. All the way through this afternoon's work, it will be saved for me. Below that, we can see that we've currently selected 0 out of 1 million people. Our Teal Green Holidays database is made of 1 million people. Now, this is data that's been collected across the business. So it's got our transactional data, so the bookings and inquiries and visits that people have made, for example. It's got the behavioral data, particularly in this case, the web behavioral data. We can see where people have visited the Teal Green Holidays website, what destinations they've looked at, what devices they were using, how long they were on the pages. It's got our CRM data, so we've got information about the customers and our customer service to those individuals. We might have our satisfaction questionnaire surveying results coming back to us. All of that has been collected together and loaded into the Apteco marketing suite. And here we're getting a marketer's view of targeting an audience with that data. That process is going to be driven by the three panels down the left-hand side. We're going to first of all create the audience. We're then going to check what the audience we've selected looks like. We'll see nice visualizations and charts, and then we will export the audience once we are happy with it. But you may remember a moment ago, I received an email from my colleague, the marketing manager, and she told me what we need to target. So I can paste that into the panel here, and let's just close that up a bit so it's easier for you to see the whole thing. Those are the various requirements. We are needing to target high income directors in the southeast. We're looking at the results of a model, in this case using a best next destination. So a process that's built into the Apteco suite is the ability to suggest the best next product, or in this case the best next destination, based on each individual customer's behavior and the availability and popularity of the destinations. And we also have the transactional data, so we're going to look back at people who visited the 3 cricket playing nations that we're targeting. We'll look at those from the transactional data. But you can see Sam has given us some exclusion rules and a limit of how many records we need to pick, and some requests for how the data is provided to her. In this case, it's going to be an email broadcast and a Facebook custom audience for targeted advertising on Facebook. But we're going to pick the audience from the database. So our first requirement was high income directors. Well, even if I'm not very familiar with the database, I could type in here the first phrase that I need to tackle, and that's the income. And I can see various variables that mention income, but here's one that is called income, and we can see a banded representation of our database, and we can see the number or frequency count for each of the bands. Now, Sam told us that she wanted people £50,000 and above, so I can click that. It's the higher income, smaller part of the database, but I can choose each of those. And as soon as I apply the criteria, you'll see that the Audiences tool selects that part of the database for me. So we now have 25,000 people out of 1 million, it's 2% of the database, and we can see the criteria that we have used listed next to the income variable. Except we were asked to restrict to directors, and so to be selected, we want people who have that income and are also identified as directors. Now, again, I may not be sure of where that information is in my database, so I've just typed in the word director, and we can see this time we found a value held within a variable that matches. So we have one variable shown with a 1, showing us occupation variable has one value that matches, and that is directors. So I can search easily across the content of my whole database to find, in this case, the job role or occupation that we've been asked for. There's relatively few of them, 15,000 on the database, but if I apply that, you'll see the 25,000 has been reduced in this case to 1,200, and we were further required to pick people who were in the southeast. So let's just again search on that value, and now we can see one variable that has two values. We've got those that are inside the M25, those that are outside the M25, but that looks like the right part of the regional breakdown, and you can see that we've come down to a smaller group. Let's have a look at how that 275 people are distributed. If we use the check panel for the first time, we can see initially the variables that we have used to create the audience, the income, the occupation, and the region. But we can also choose a predetermined profile. And so this is a group of variable presentation determined by my administrator. And they've given us a breakdown by region. So we can see the two regions we've picked. We can see we only have high income individuals. We only have directors, and they're split with slightly more males than females in this case. And at the bottom of the screen, we can see a sample of the data. So we know that we are picking the right types of individuals. Let's go back and continue with the challenge that Sam gave us, because she has said that we'd like anybody who was modelled with the best next destination of Australia or New Zealand. And Orbit makes it easy. The Audiences tool allows me to extend my current criteria, or alternatively, I can say I have a new reason to pick people, a new way to pick people. So I'm going to say, in addition to all that I've done before, I now have another way of picking people. So pick them for the first reason or this new reason. And in this case, we're looking for best next destination. There's the variable. And we've been asked to pick people who were targeted for either Australia or New Zealand or South Africa. And actually, that model has not produced anyone targeted for South Africa, but it doesn't matter, because in a minute we'll see how we can pick people by different reasons to come into our audience. We were asked also to check that the web visit history for these people shows an interest in these destinations. So let's go and find details about the web visits. And this time I'll use a slightly different mechanism just to illustrate that we can navigate through a folder structure. So we can see folders of data, and I'm going to open the folder to do with web visits. And you can see that we've got information about the URL, the date and time, what type of device, how long the visit was on page, for example. And we were asked to target on the URL, the product. So if you have an e-commerce system, you may well get product information in your web feed, but in this case, we've just got the URLs. And so I'm going to say, I'll pick anybody who's visited a page that contains Australia, for example. I'll also look for New Zealand. Now, I know that our URLs have underscores in them like that, so I can put the appropriate text in, and we can do the same for South Africa. You may actually choose how to present that type of information as you're building the database. And elsewhere, actually, I've got the domains. Teal Green Holidays runs several different web brands, and we could subset by those brands, but Sam's not asked us to do that in this case. But she has asked us to say we're only interested in people who have visited in the last 3 years. So no, sorry, I've read the wrong thing. She's asked for visits that had a duration of over 30 seconds. So let's just go again to the web visit. We'll pick the duration and we'll say that we have people greater than or equal to 30-second visit. So Sam's judgment is somebody who spent 30 seconds looking at one of these URLs has established a behavior where they're interested in this site. And you can see as we're working on this group, we've extended the number. So we have a slightly higher number of people targeted. Let's extend it further with our final target group, and these are previous customers. So we're now going to look for people who have been to those 3 destinations before. So we're going to search for destination, and again we will find the variable that we need. There's several variables regarding destination, but we will go to the one that we need and we will pick off again Australia, New Zealand and South Africa, and we are going to restrict this time to the 3-year timetable. So let's pick off people whose travel date is in the time period required. So we'll go from today and we're going to go backwards by 3 years to 2016 to July the 26th up to today. So we'll just pick today's date. So we've got a 3-year window. And in this case, we're now picking people who meet both of those criteria. You can see a golden bar linking those 2 criteria together. So this is ensuring we're only picking the people who have been to those destinations in this timetable. It's not allowing people who visited other destinations in that timetable or people who've been to the destinations we want but outside that timetable. These 2 things are linked together. They must both be met on one particular booking. So we've got a bigger audience now, 123,000. Let's just check what it looks like. We can go back to the check panel, and where previously we just had, I think, 800 people, we now have 123,000, and we can see they're no longer just in these high income bands. We now have a wider group. We've picked people in lower income bands, in different regions of the country, and different occupations. We still have a similar male and female split, but we have a bigger group. And I think on reviewing the brief that Sam sent me, I feel reasonably happy. We've got the right sort of data. We can see a sample of the people at the bottom here. We can step through a number of those pages. We can see different people. And oh dear, here Mrs. Broadley meets our criteria, but she doesn't have an email address. And you might remember that Sam said she needs an emailable list. We need to make sure that everybody has an email address and that they have opted in, or in this case, I'm going to say not opted out of email marketing. So we have some further requirements we need to remember to apply. And we can do that by going back to where we create the rule. And now we can say, in addition to all the 3 sections we've created, targeting the sort of individuals we want, this time we have a further criteria that applies to everything. You must meet one of these 3 criteria. And in this case, I want to make sure that you are emailable. So I've chosen the emailable variable, and we can see which people on the database have valid emails. Over 1 million people in our database have a valid email address. But as soon as I apply it, you'll see the count will drop slightly from 123,000 to 120,000 people. But I still have a further obligation. Like good marketers, we need to ensure that we're picking a group whom have permission. And so I'm going to say that I want to pick those people who have given us permission. So we have an email permission flag. I'm going to exclude those people who have said do not email market to me. So we now have an exclusion group of 89,000 overlaid with our 120,000 we're targeting, gives us 110,000 marketable people. But we have one final criteria. We're going to exclude them if they have withdrawn permission or if they have booked with us in to travel this year. So let's just put in a travel date obligation, and we're going to do 1st of January 2019 up to the 31st of December 2019. That's another exclusion rule. So they'll be excluded for one reason or the other. And our net is 102,000 people, except that Sam said she wanted a maximum of 50,000, picking the highest value customers. Well, fortunately, we can do that. If I apply a limit, I can say that I want the top 50,000 people, and in this case, I'm going to select them by their total spend. So I'm going to pick their total spend on their bookings, and Sam has suggested that we try to distribute the offer as widely as possible by saying we only want one per household. There's lots of ways that you can limit how you're targeting or grouping, but in this case, we're limiting to one per household. So with that limit applied, you can see we're warned the audience is now limited. We've successfully got 50,000 people. We're preference picking the highest spenders. We're limiting to one per household. We're excluding by permissions and including by the 3 rules that Sam gave us and the overall emailable indicator. We can look at checking that rule to make sure that we're happy with it. It still looks good. And we can now share it with Sam. So I can say that I'd like to email Sam at tealgreenholidays.co.uk, and this is our cricket audience version 1, and if I wish to, I could say, hey Sam, first view, and that's from James. And I can share that, and Sam will get a link to that audience. She can visit it in a browser, and she will be able to see the rule that I have created. She'll be able to see the check panel with the data in it, but she will not be able to interact with it. She'll not be able to do anything with it. But when she's happy with it and she comes back to me, I can choose to export that. And by default, we'll export with the same name as the audience. I've been looking here at the names and addresses, but actually all I need for Sam is an email list. And so I can export that, and it takes a moment to prepare the data. That was live from the cloud. We've just produced this comma separated values file, CSV file, and on my PC that's associated with Excel. There is our data, and we can see that we have all 50,000 rows and one header. So that's ready for me to give to Sam. If Sam is happy and wants to go ahead, I could actually then use that in my campaign management system. We're not going to learn about the detail of this today, but here is Apteco People Stage, and I can take my Cricket Tour audience and add it to a campaign. So this is my Cricket Tour campaign workflow. I can drag that, drop it into my audience, and if I just zoom in on that, well, in fact, it was too quick for me. It's already counted the 50,000 people, and I can schedule that campaign to produce the personalized content and deliver by email, and we'll look more at how we report on that in a future webinar. So you've seen how we can share, you've seen how we can create. Let's just finish off back in PowerPoint. Our takeaway, you learned how easy it is to navigate to the Orbit system and to find the data. We've learned how we can use the brief in the product to guide us as we create the rule and then refine that rule, check that it is meeting our expectation, share it with the commissioning colleague, and when we're ready, export it so that that colleague can go campaign with it. Our time is up. Thank you very much for attending. This was episode 1 of our webinar series. Episode 2 is about sharing insight and communicating that insight with your colleagues. Episode 3 is about monitoring your campaign activity. I'm James Alty. You can call me direct on the phone number on screen, or email me using the email address, or if you choose to, follow me on Twitter. Thank you very much for attending today. That is the end of the webinar.